All right, so we are going to go ahead and get started. Welcome everybody to the culinary ecosystem. I am Alexander Martin. I am the director of Boxville and project manager for Bronzeville Cooking. I am super excited. This is the fourth day on this entrepreneurial summit. For those who may not have participated earlier this week, it's just been an amazing week. Jam-packed with, free game, if you will, lots of motivation to keep us all going. I know I certainly have learned something, and hopefully you'll be able to take away some things from today. Want to do a little bit of housekeeping, a few church announcements, if you will, before we start. This session is being recorded, so keep that in mind. Keep it very casual conversation, but just always want to remind people. This week of sessions has been made possible by the wonderful folks at the Illinois SBDC, Build Bronzeville, where I'm currently located right now, as well as the Greater Englewood, Illinois SBDC, and the fine folks at the Coleman Foundation. We're certainly grateful for the partnership, and with their support, we actually have some great business essential prize packages that we're giving away. So at the end of the summit, we'll be randomly picking some attendees to win a few prizes, and there actually will be a grand prize too. So professional headshots. Don't know how many folks need or don't have a professional headshot. I know I need to stop using pictures that my wife has taken of me and stop using selfies, but that's part of the prize pack. We also have a 3-day work pass to the Bronzeville incubator, and the grand prize, which includes headshots, the 3-day pass, and some branded apparel, some t-shirts for your business. So we'll be picking those winners again at the end of the week, at the end of the summit. They will be picked at random, and we'll be delivering those prizes digitally. So something to look forward to as well. So why are we here? What are we talking about? What are we doing? We're building culinary enterprises for Black and Brown perspective. I just want to start with the definition of an ecosystem. So the scientific definition, if you will, is a biological community of interacting organisms in their physical environment. So that's what we're doing today, if you will. We have a panel that represents different areas of our culinary community. We're going to be interacting by, keeping it real, having a real discussion about our experiences in our environment, revealing best practices, some lessons learned. How do we become more efficient, impactful, and sustainable? Those are the key things for our Black and Brown ecosystem in this culinary industry. So we're going to discuss those strategies, what's essential to growing ownership in hospitality, and what we may share today. It may or may not be common knowledge. I would say that some of this information isn't as accessible in our community. So we're going to benefit from that by hearing from our panelists from their own perspective and experiences. So I just want to highlight a couple or a few things that we'll be covering through discussion. And then, of course, we'll just kind of see how the conversation goes. We're going to start with ownership of your career path. I talked a little bit, or the poll question was asking, how many people, are in business, own their own business, and for how many years. And so owning your business, own business may be the ultimate goal. And sometimes it's an assumed end goal, but taking ownership of your career path is just as important. And you want to be intentional about that and taking the right next steps for whatever that means for you and in your future. When we talk about collaboration and support, I like to refer to cooperative competition using shared resources. When you don't have the capital or some of these resources, how do you use relationships and information to work through obstacles? Of course, going over best practices and lessons learned. We're going to talk about solopreneurs, investing in the human resource, training, hiring, and why that's so important for Black and Brown leadership and ownership in our industry. And my favorite, which is probably not everyone's favorite, systems and processes. How are we designing what we're doing in our ecosystem or in the how we represent ourselves in the larger ecosystem? How do we remain flexible? How do we remain consistent? And how do we put ourselves in position to scale? So with that, I want to introduce or have our panelists introduce themselves. We do have Chef Lucy from AO Bistro who could not make it today. She sends her regards. If anybody knows in this industry, things happen in a flash. So she apologizes that she could not make it, but I pulled somebody out of the dugout to stand up in her place. And some of you know her well, and a colleague of mine, Lauren Amos, and she'll introduce herself in a moment. But again, we have a wonderful panel. I'm not going to do them any justice by introducing them. I'm going to have them run through, give us a couple minutes about themselves, and then we're going to go into discussion. So Chef Mariya Russell, why don't you start off your introduction and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okie dokie. Hello, everyone. My name is Mariya Russell. I am originally from Ohio, but I moved to Chicago after high school to go to culinary school. So I've been in the industry for a little bit over 15 years, which is about half of my life. And now I am the first Black female to receive a Michelin star. Currently, I am living in Hawaii and building a business and platform for myself, and just really like leaning into myself and the things that I love and the things that make me happy. So that's where I am.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for all of this Black girl magic you bring into the Monique, if you could go next, please.
Of course, happy to. Thank you so much for having me. First of all, I'm really honored and proud to be included in this panel. And my name is Monique. I'm actually originally from Georgia, which is where I am now, back in the great state of Georgia here with my family. But I've been in Chicago for the past 21 years, save a little bit of time in LA. I've been in hospitality since college, actually since high school. Who am I kidding? And primarily working on the front of the house. I say regularly and routinely that nobody wants me in their kitchen, but I can sell anything and that you all create and produce. And I'm very excited about the people behind the products, which is where I am now in my career as the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Program Manager for Let Us Entertain You restaurants. My love for hospitality, my love for people, my love for the industry has taken me to a place where I'm on the back end of things, helping to get people in, helping to create those systems that Alexander mentioned earlier to make, to make our products and our people successful. So in my role that I'm working with at Lettuce at this point, it's really to help them scrutinize their systems and to help them get better. For a 50-year-old company that's already got some success under their belt, we're working to get better on an individual level as well as on a corporate level, and hopefully create some innovation that will be recognized and utilized nationwide.
Awesome, thank you. And Monique, it's so awesome to have you on here. And when she talks about making things happen in the background, like, she is not lying. She has just been a wonderful partner with us here at Build Bronzeville. So thanks for joining us and thanks for sharing. Lauren, you are up next.
Oh, hey. So I am Lauren Amos. I am the Managing Director of Small Business Development here at the Bronzeville Incubator and the Director for our Illinois SBDC that is here at the Incubator. My background is actually finance and strategy. Those who know me know, my kind of story and journey of going from the world of corporate finance and strategy to diving very, very far down the wine rabbit hole into the world of Master's Court of Sommelier and learning the wine business, which ultimately led me to just, the world of restaurants in general. I came back to Chicago after spending 10 years in New York doing finance and strategy, to join our wonderful restaurant community, our hospitality community that is here, and have done pretty much everything in a restaurant, from the host stand to busing to serving to bartending to expo in the kitchen. I could run a dishwasher. I could do it all, right? Let's actually take that all the way back. I cannot do it all. I'd stay away from the hot side of the kitchen. I will get on garde manger. So those who know the kitchen, I'll can plate up some real cute cold stuff, but I'm not playing with the hot side of the kitchen. You know, this conversation and this panel, for me, and even me just being here right now, is a testament to, as you talk about, you know, ecosystem and restaurants, and knowing all kind of aspects of the reason I've done all those things in a restaurant is because as someone who wanted to run one, I wanted to know all the pieces. And because for everyone that's on who knows restaurants, know you may have to jump in anywhere at any time to do anything. And this morning or this afternoon is a testament to that. One of our teammates, right, had an emergency, so I need to come in and jump in. I said, put me in, chef, I got it. So that's me. Those are the things. Before I turn it over to Chef T, I just want to underscore, highlight something, just so everyone has an understanding, right, of something that was shared a few moments ago. In the world, there are only 2,651 Michelin star restaurants. There are 24 Michelin star restaurants in Chicago. Only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So on the scale, there's a 1-star, 2-star, and a 3-star. Of the 24 Michelin star restaurants that are in Chicago, only 5 are 2-star Michelin restaurants. Alexander Martin and Chef Mariya were part of that kind of community. So just understand, right, when she said she's the first Black woman chef to earn her Michelin star, that's, I mean, it's a club of one, of a very, very elite club. So again, just hats off, chef.
Club of one.
Club of
It
one.
just gave me chills. Yeah.
I got a couple of goosebumps. Can we put that?
I just wanted to put some context, right? I said I'm a finance person, numbers drive me. I want to give everyone some context of what we're talking about here, okay?
Well, I think it wouldn't be a strong panel without a strong man to help represent the culinary community. So Chef T, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us why you're here.
My name is Chef Sadakia. I am the co-owner of Majani. Majani is at the core, we are a restaurant that is committed to building community through innovative plant-based cuisine. And I know the two sometimes building community in restaurants, but they're at the core of a lot of strong communities, walkable communities. I mean, food is the celebration of at the core of celebrating culture. So I've been a vegan for almost 40 years. I've been a vegan chef for 30 of those years. I started it in Atlanta at Soul Vegetarian, came here 91, had my first restaurant in 2000, and together with my wife, we started Majani. We currently have 3 restaurants here on the South Side, and plus our commissary. So, you know, for us, you know, the understanding, you know, that restaurants use a lot of energy. So when you talk about being sustainable, how can we offset that by, you know, in our case, you know, using a lot of reclaimed materials to make to decorate our restaurant, and, you know, we recycle a lot of our food waste, and we'll get into all that later, I'm sure. But, you know, for us, building community and doing it in a way that is responsible is at the heart of what we do, and including hiring local talent. So I come from a family of 16, so food has always been front and center for me, and something that was a hobby, and until I realized, hey, why not just put all your energy into this? So this is definitely a labor of love for me, and a passion about making our communities as healthy as possible.
Amen to all of that. Man, one of 16, like you had to be first at the table. You couldn't be last.
Well, you had to learn how to eat like this. You know?
Well, as you guys can see, we have some major players representing here today. So I'm gonna just jump on in and kick off our discussion. Again, this is a conversation. Like, we're just talking. So I wanted to have everyone go around, if you will, and talk about, you know, I know everyone's mentioned briefly the history and how it started, but how did you really take ownership of your career in deciding what you wanted to do? And I think Chef Mariya, if you could kick us off, one, because I know some of your history because I've worked right next to you on a line, and you've got a technical background, and you've have your achievements now. So why don't you kick us off and tell us how you took ownership of your career?
So first thing for me was just realizing, what I was capable of and all the things I had accomplished, and what I was, able to do just in general as a human being, and believing those things, looking back on those things and believing yeah, you did that. I feel like that is a lot of how you're able to sustain your own ability, just believing in the fact that you're able, in the 15 years that I have been doing this, I wasn't oh, okay, this is the point where I'm going to leave, this is when I'm going to leave. But I was able to do that then because, I made it a mission to be the best I possibly could at everything that I was doing. And all of that prepared me for that very moment. There were so many things that I did that I chose to do on my path, to get me to the point where I was, to get me the confidence that I needed to be okay, it's time, I, for one, believed in myself. Like I said, I practiced all the time and read all the time, even when I wasn't feeling like it or I wasn't feeling at my best. I pushed through a lot of learning curve phases because in this industry, there's a lot of learning curves, where you feel okay, this is a lot. What do I need to do to be able to take all of this information in and not feel intimidated by it, So there were a lot of things that I did that helped me to continue on the path of climbing the ladder, staying at jobs when I didn't want to because I knew that it was good for me. Going outside of certain boxes that I never thought I would, exposing myself to experiences that were new and sometimes scary, just putting myself in environments that I wouldn't ever necessarily go into, but knowing that I needed to break those barriers for myself to learn new things and just absorb everything I possibly could and learn everything I possibly could so I could be equipped to do what I needed for myself. And I could be an asset for myself and my husband when we eventually have our own thing,
Yeah, I think something you just said made me think, to take ownership and, you have to be uncomfortable sometimes, and to do things that you've never, that you've never done. You have to do things that you've never done before as well. So I think that brings me to you, Lauren, in the transition from your career of finance and corporate and choosing your path, share what that looked like for you to put a chokehold on your career path.
I would say for me, probably the biggest way that I took ownership of my career path was letting go, meaning letting go of what this is supposed to look like, right? And trusting the journey, trusting myself, trusting my gut, you know, and being open, right? So for me, you know, the reason that once I wound up in restaurants because I wanted to open a restaurant, but I wanted to open a restaurant, not asking people to do things that I had never done myself. And so I said, okay, how do I learn that, right? Well, I think Sherman may have said it on, someone said it, another panelist said it earlier this week, you know, I leaned real hard into letting someone else pay me for me to learn from them, right? And it's like, lean all the way into that. Cool, I'll be on your payroll. I'm going to learn from your wins. I'm going to learn from your losses. I'm going to learn from you, right? And, you know, being comfortable to do that, and like I said, in ways and areas that I hadn't planned on going into. When my first job in a restaurant was as a host. And this is after being a corporate finance director for over a decade and having teams and sitting in boardrooms and, you know, having really good job and making good money and doing all kinds of fun, fancy stuff, and going and standing at the front door and having people walk right past you like you don't even exist, because that's what happens to the host. They're some of the worst treated people in the restaurant, right? Because people see them as insignificant. You know, if I wanted to, I could have went into a restaurant and gone into a managerial lane, but that's not where the learning needed to happen. The learning needs to happen at how do you properly bust a table, right? So being open to, like I said, being fully open to let go of the pretense, to let go of this is what this is supposed to look like. This is the way this is supposed to happen, and just leaning into the experiences and trusting that, you know, if you're quiet enough, you're going to hear the things, right? And pay attention to them and go, you know, move with it.
I love that.
Yeah, leaning in. I mean, I think, you know, in identifying that, you know, where you're at may be uncomfortable, but like you said,
it's for a
being
reason.
quiet enough and being determined enough to like, oh, I'm gonna pick up and absorb whatever I can.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, Monique, for you, you know, your experience and journey is different than I would say the rest of us, but how does that apply, I guess, to what you've seen and experienced at Lettuce, and like how you've taken ownership?
Yeah, I mean, just big yes to what Lauren and to Chef Mariya have already said. And from my perspective, my decision to take control of my career honestly started really early. And what I mean by that was that I had, to speak specifically to what Lauren said, I've always followed my instincts. Always. I knew at a very young age, I don't know that I want to sit behind a desk. I don't know that I want to have the cookie cutter lifestyle of, you know, you go to college, you go get a normal job, you sit behind a desk, you work 9 to 5. Like, I knew that that wasn't for me. I didn't know how my life would manifest or what I would do, but I knew that instantly once I started working in hospitality and in the food industry, I was like, there's something to this. And as I, you know, started to work in more restaurants and build my career, you know, from fast casual working up into fine dining as a front of the house person, like Lauren, I'm going to learn how to host. I'm going to learn how to bus. I'm going to be a manager. I'm going to bartend. You kind of work in all of those areas. I knew that I was learning. I didn't know where it was going to take me, but I knew that I needed to have all of those pieces of the puzzle to do whatever I was doing in that moment well. So how that manifested for me longer term was following my instinct of, I know this is the right industry for me. And like many other people that I know and have read about, something happened at 40. Certainly as I approached 40, I'm just like, I've got enough under my belt. I've got enough information at this point, because I like the whole imposter syndrome thing my entire 30s. I think I could have done more sooner in terms of, you know, having a bigger platform, but I didn't. I was like, I don't know enough. I'm still not, I felt very insecure about that. But something that happened at 40, you're just like, the switch just went on. And I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to take a literally cliff dive off into the water because I know how to swim. Didn't know what I was going to do, but I know how to swim. So I took I left my hourly roles and dived into the aviation lounge world, which I didn't know was even a thing. And I spent about 3 years between O'Hare and LAX as a training and development manager for these aviation lounges and doing operations, just really being knee deep in the managerial learning about from HR to just all the back end of things. And that brought me to, I got all of that experience and knew that, okay, I do have the information to take me further and to climb a little bit higher. And then wanting to do that with Let Us Entertain You, I had such a great experience with that company as an hourly that I wanted to come back in a capacity to help, like you mentioned already. Let me see what I can do to help build some systems, to help build a more inclusive culture for that restaurant company, because the bones of what they do is already so good, but there are some missing pieces. And I really go from imposter syndrome of not thinking I can do it to all of a sudden thinking, no, I think I am the right person to help move them forward and to help myself, like Lauren said, to move myself forward. And really, I think it was just instinct and making a decision, knowing that I've got the discipline to do it when it's hard, and it's always going to be hard, but also having the instincts to know that I'm in the right space, doing the right thing for myself, and not listening to the noise of what other people say you should be doing.
Yeah, I mean, because there's always noise. There's people who say like, oh, you should be doing something else. There's people always challenging our instincts. I didn't talk about myself a lot because this isn't about me, but similarly, I'd made the leap from going from a comfortable job at JP Morgan to starting my own catering business. And that was an instinctive move. It was a risk. And I think transitioning and getting to hear from Chef Sadaki, and if you could talk, sir, a little bit about like your instinct and the risk that you took to really take hold and ownership of what your plan was. Was your vision always to have the brand that you have now, or share with us a little bit about like some of the things that got you to this point?
Well, I'm 1,000% sure my journey was totally different from most people's. I remember distinctly I was 25 years old, and another story that I won't divulge into now, but I had just spent 2 years in the federal prison system. And it was like, I was filling out an application, and the question was always, have you ever been convicted of a felony? And I said, I will not answer that question again in my life. And it was just, for me, it was just like, what can I do that with the skills that I have to make my own way and also serve the community, and that I could do internationally, because I was thinking about, traveling abroad, and so it was, the thing that I enjoyed the most was cooking. And it was my goal at that moment to ultimately have my own restaurant. And from that moment, it took me about 13 years from that day that I made that decision. But, this is pre-internet and stuff. So the study, there was not much. Being a vegan nothing was out there. So not very much was out there. So just studying, in the kitchen, 12, 13 hours a day, just grinding, trying to figure out, how can I make this and make it taste good, and how can I make it appealing to the community. And it was just years of that kind of grind. Then I, in 91, started at Soul Vegetarian, and had a brief apprenticeship there, and was with that company for 7 years, and started my first restaurant in 2000. Had that for 3 years, and went back to catering, and then ultimately, started Majani with my wife, and as a catering company, and just wanted to do more in the community and engaging folks around issues of healthy eating, did a lot of pop-ups around the city, anywhere we could do, from the Bronzeville Garden, high schools doing all kind of cooking demonstrations and stuff, and just really just pushing that out there. And but it was, all that came from just a desire to just to work really hard and to make my own way. I think that was the thing. I can probably count on one hand how many jobs I've had, as an adult. And so it's a different path. It was a path that maybe most people won't take, but it was my path.
Yeah, all of our paths are unique. And I think that's what makes this panel, it gives such great perspective. And looking at our paths, I think that they're all determining the tools and the information that we have needed to where we all are now. So all the best practices, all the things that we've learned, Lauren was mentioning, being in the right place to absorb the right things, for a time in the future. I want to talk about some of those lessons learned and best practices, like kind of really jumping into some things that people can take away from each of us on, how can they apply a best practice that you saw, observed, or experienced yourself that they can apply to their business or their career path. Anybody can jump in, whoever feels moved.
I'm gonna go last.
Okay. I'll go first. I'll kick it off. So I'll throw a little bit about my history as I talk through this. My most recent experience, I was an assistant general manager for a restaurant group, 16 on Center. I was actually Lauren's number 2, or she will call me her co-Batman. We were the 1 and 2 lead in Pilsen neighborhood for Deus Ex, Board and Beer, Punch House, and Tack Room. And for me, I was taking the best things that were happening in this restaurant group. And when you're in a space where you can see people collaborate, where you can see people make their mistakes, you can know how to pivot. One thing I learned from one of the partners of this group was that how to use every possible square inch and resource that you have and make it work for you. Our jobs are so hard, no matter what you're doing, whether you're a dishwasher, whether you're a host, whether you're on the back end helping to get the right people in the right place. How do we make our work for us? So we had this very large space and large building. We were using every square inch that we could. And while none of us may own a building, or not all of us may own a building and say, okay, how do I monetize each and every space? It just taught me to look at things in a very efficient manner. Like if I'm going to do something, like it has to return an investment for me in some way. And maybe that's not capital. Maybe it's I've built a relationship with someone that can help me in the future. Maybe if this interview didn't pan out, but they're available for another position. Looking at things in a strategic way to say, how can I make this constraint or obstacle work in my favor, as opposed to being stuck with what's blocking me at the moment. So efficiency. And I learned that from a restaurant group that had to learn how to maneuver and pivot just like the rest of us. So that's my most recent experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I don't know that this will completely answer your question, but 2 things that I could and would speak to this from my own experience and from my own perspective. And again, tagging on to what Lauren spoke about earlier, one thing not to do, and I think it's just imperative, you've got to let go of the pride and ego, whatever pride and ego that you're bringing to the table as you're either building a business or you're trying to sustain your business, check it at the door, because those 2 things I've seen it time and time again. Pride and ego have just been the biggest roadblocks for many people, regardless of how high up the chain they are, or regardless where they are in their business building process. And to that, as you check that pride and ego, use the resources around you. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there. Don't be afraid to utilize the expertise that's around you, because the person sitting to your left and to your right, they may not you know, have some bigwig title, but they have information. People around you have information. And if you have the pride and ego to say, no, I don't think I'm going to ask this person because ... No, check in and ask questions. Put yourself out there. Be on LinkedIn, Instagram, however you can make yourself available to people to say, hey, I'm out here. Hey, I'm curious. Hey, I'm trying to, you know, create something or sustain something. And like you said, Alexander, do you want to collaborate? Or how can I be of service to you? And as you make yourself available, as you are of service to someone else, that's going to make other people want to be of service to you. So using your networks, building your networks, and understanding that there's so much information out there, but you have to make yourself available to it, and you have to let yourself or recognize that you don't have all the answers and that you are going to need help throughout the process. So create those relationships, use your resources, and don't be so prideful or so full of ego that it has to be my way in my box, because that will absolutely be to your detriment at some point down the road.
Totally. Like following your instincts is a really, really big one that we as individuals, you know, following a path have to use, you know. But one of the things for me was definitely, we are all very, very much human. This is something that I believe in with my whole heart, like showing human emotion in restaurant settings and showing guests that you're far, you know, more human than you are the role that you're in, or you are the title that you have. Really, really helps create and promote an atmosphere that shows, you know, love and real human emotion. It's really what you need in your restaurant environment. So guests are able to just be, you know, they feel like they can just be themselves and not have to give any extra effort. Of course, respectful in saying that, but this in turns just creates an atmosphere that helps people feel relaxed and helps people feel like they're at home. And this is, you know, something that I will always take with me. And I think it's really important to incorporate in, you know, the industry.
I would say, I think the same thing, trusting your instincts, you know, because along the path, there are definitely a lot of noise that can say, hey, are you sure you should be doing this or doing it here? Or, you know, when we were building Majani, people would, you know, a lot of the work, you know, we did ourselves, and people would walk by, oh, we're doing a vegan restaurant. And they were like, vegan restaurant? We need a soul food restaurant. And so just, you know, just like blocking all that stuff out and come hell or high water, just, I think, being focused and honoring that voice that's inside of you and following that path. And, you know, and to the point, humbling yourself, you know, just before we opened up, Johnny had a chance to sit with RJ and from Let Us Entertain You and have breakfast with him. And just, how do you do this, man? How do you make it successful? And just humbling yourself to listen to someone who's done it at a high level, and embrace that and incorporate that in. And I think for us, you know, the other thing was just being driven by wanting to have a space where people could gather and be respected, and be able to create that atmosphere. You know, so following that path was something that was important to us.
And I have two. One actually touches on what Chef Mariya was just talking about, which is, you know, I jotted down when it popped in my head, you know, experience. Always, and this is, you know, an answer for me that is very specific to this group, to Culinary, you know, we are not, as much as we sell food and beverage, we are not in the business of selling food and beverage. We're in the business of selling experiences. People can eat at home cheaply, right? much cheaper than they can at any of the restaurants represented, right? You are creating an experience for somebody. And I know that sounds like, well, that's not a system or a process, but it is, right? You have to be very intentional from the very first point of interaction, be it walking at the door, if you're talking about a brick and mortar space, if you're online presence, the very first click of your website, if you are a caterer, the very first, interaction that is the intake process, whatever form of hospitality you are doing, being very intentional, having a set process for what that looks like and what it makes that person feel like, right? Because that's what gets them to come back. There are lots of places I've been to that the food is slamming. I've never gone back because I just didn't like the way I felt there, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's just the truth. It's just the truth.
So
And
true.
there are places that I've been back to 1 trillion times that are the food's okay. I mean, it's good, but like it's nothing that I'm just gonna be like, oh my God, that's the best thing that I've ever eaten. But I continue to go back because I like the way I feel when I'm there. Right. So,
The human experience.
The human experience.
Mm-hmm.
Just to give, an example from there are a lot of things. Don't tell nobody I said this. This is private. Go ahead. Give an example from somewhere, I won't say their name, that I used to work, that this particular restaurant group, not the one Alexander and I work for, and it's not lettuce, but it's another big one in the city. I don't like a lot of things about them, but what I can say about them is that they nail almost like data collection, if you will, about their guests, and using that information to create experiences for people that, when someone walks in the door, that their, favorite wine is X, or that their anniversary is Y, or that the last time that they came, they had this thing to eat and they raved about it. And maybe they are there bringing an out-of-town guest in, for dinner. You just surprise them with that thing. And they're like, shut up, right? That's... that person feels like they're a part of something, right? Though that's when I say the experience is intentional. It looks like the theater of it is that this was just a nice gesture. We planned that yesterday when we saw your name on the reservation books, right? Yep. We have a system in place. If you have a really long wait for your table, just go greet them at the door with 2 glasses of champagne. Just soon as they walk up, and they're gonna be like, this place is lovely. They just, no, we gave you that because it's about to be 30 minutes before you sit down. And I
but you don't know that.
Right.
But you don't know that.
You
right?
don't know what's happening
you
behind the
certainly
curtain.
don't feel
You
it.
have no idea that. But while you are waiting this 30 to 40 minutes for your table, guess who has walked up giving you champagne, and we're gonna have a really good conversation. We're gonna chit and chat, and before you sit down, we're gonna be best friends. And you're just gonna think I'm just a nice Black lady who came to talk to you and give you champagne. That's true, kind of. Like, right? Yep. It's a very intentional process. So that's why I say that's a process, right? The experience. The other one that I had down was actually just to have a system. What system should you have? A system. It doesn't need to be fancy. It doesn't need to be in a computer software. It doesn't. Starting from the beginning, and I've scrolled through some of the participant list to see who's on here. And there are some folks who are clients of mine that are on here. And if you've worked with me long enough, meaning prior, more than one day, that I'm going to drive you in this way. Have a system, have a process, have a plan from the beginning. When you're first starting to think about your concept and your business, think about who you want that to be. Who is this business? And start building your system from the scratch. It could just be what you write down in a notepad that says, this is how I'm going to intake a catering inquiry. This is how I'm going to, I'm going to make a conscious decision that I will not take inquiries through DMs on Instagram. Instead, my thing is going to say, here's my intake form, so that before I ever talk to you, I have these things written down. And now you don't have to, once you get busy, you don't have to retrofit and go back and figure out a system. Start from the beginning with a plan and system. It'll change over time, but at least you have a system. Steps off soapbox. Gives the floor back.
Yeah, I mean, and just to the first point you said, I mean, of course, I can't drive home systems enough, but in regards to like the champagne and the little thank you, the little things count in the experience.
People will
People
never, ever
will
forget that.
remember how you made them feel. And it doesn't have to be a restaurant. It could be a caterer. If you had a personal thank you card, if you're catering for a birthday event, you're giving them a happy birthday card as well too. Or there's a small treat, something that they're, the unexpected treats, if you will. People are going to remember those things. And, as a caterer and a chef, of course, margins are always tight and things are small. And you're like, oh man, I don't know if I can afford to do that. Yes, you can. Mm-hmm. You can afford to make a very small gesture because what you have done, you're getting a customer, a guest for, not just one party or event, but for many. They're going to remember that. They're going to tell their friends. So keep that in mind, that it's the little things that count. I mean, it's cliche, but it's so true. But yeah, thanks for adding that, Lauren. I want to talk a little bit more about around the subject of being intentional in regards to collaborations. I know we talked about being intentional and learning in our environments, but I want to talk about being intentional and like collaborating with other chefs, businesses, what we may even see as competition. And in that collaboration, I want to talk a little bit about partnership, networking, mentorship. I think that we try to, as Black and brown entrepreneurs and solopreneurs, we try to do everything ourselves for many different reasons. And sometimes that's a barrier. Every great player in a game needs a coach, whether they have a team or not. Tiger Woods got a swing coach. LeBron's got a coach working with him. You would think his coach in his basketball team is really the coach, but that's another subject. But everybody needs someone to help move them forward. It's kind of weird that we think that we can be successful just on our own. It's sexy to think about, I've bootstrapped myself and brought myself to the top, but somebody has helped you along the way. So I want to just, bring to the group and talk about how you've been intentional about collaborations or just your thoughts and strategies behind that.
Alexander, can I interject one thing, Chef, before you answer? And I'm only doing this because I see a question in the chat that similarly speaks to your question, so I want to make sure we address it. But it also talks about the best process for consulting with chefs, with other chefs. And so I just want to, kind of put that out there as well as part of answering this.
And also keep the questions coming in the Q&A. We'll try to wrap the answers in to discussion. And if we don't directly get to that, we'll address it at the end if we have time.
Okay, so for this one, I think for me personally, going to eat at restaurants a lot, like at the beginning of my career and like, up into the middle when I was like, okay, what am I going to do next? Eating at restaurants really helped me figure out what I wanted, because I would go and eat and be like, ooh, this food is really good. I want to work here, So before I started working at Senza, I was kind of in a spot where I was, starting to get unhappy, and I just wanted to make a change. And I went and ate at Senza when they first opened, and I was like, I'm gonna work here. All right. Let's just talk about that. You need somebody. Okay, it's gonna be me. I'm gonna go quit my job. Okay. So, the collaboration and the networking and partnership that you decide to do can catapult your career in a way that you never imagined. So this is also very instinctual. Like, you're just like, okay, I'm going to follow my instincts. I don't really know very much about this food in particular, but I know that I like it. So I'm going to take the steps to get to the point where I know everything about this and can execute it better than everyone here. So it's taking those steps, you know, like, so I literally the next day went to work and put in my 2 weeks, and
yeah, you did.
Was the sous chef. So, you know, I think it's one of the most important things to have someone that is willing to, you know, take you under their wing and be like, yes, I see a lot inside of you. Let me teach you the things that I know. So, you know, partnering with Noah was one of the best things that I could have ever done, because it's helped me so much along the way. Also, networking in this industry is super up there at the top of the list of things that you should do, because, you know, it creates community, it creates a family between you and other restaurants and other people in the industry doing similar things, doing different things. So you're learning from these people and you have friends. You know, you have somebody to lean on when you're like, okay, I really have no idea what to do next, or I'm feeling this way about something that somebody said to me. I don't know if this is my ego or, you know, whatever. Just having a network of people that you can turn to just in general in life are, you know, is really, really good. Really, really good thing.
And to that point, I think specifically, I want to like really point the focus to what I think is so important for the Black community is like seek out the Black folks, the people that look like you, that are doing the things that you want to do, or find someone who also wants to do the same things. And there's energy in that collaboration. I don't know, Chef Sadaki, if you can speak to that, like how, you know, the community has either, you know, supported you in collaborations that you have seen in the Bronzeville community. I mean, I know that you have a relationship with the visionary of what is Build Bronzeville. So talk a little about what the collaboration looks like in the Black and Brown hospitality community.
Well, for us, you know, as you know, we probably spent a good almost 5 years working on the Bronzeville project, you know, getting it, trying to lift it off the ground. And I think for me, that experience, it taught me a lot about the whole sustainable movement. Because prior to, it's easy just to pick up the phone and say, call your produce guy and say, hey, I need a case of broccoli, I need some collard greens, and give no thought about where that comes from. But it was the collaboration on that project that started you to understand, hey, what local produce means and what it means to support local farmers. And that was really when the seed was planted, working with a variety of folks from green roofs to understanding solar thermal, geothermal energy, all those things. And then you start thinking, how can I incorporate some of that stuff? Is it possible to incorporate that stuff into a project, you know, and how do you do that? So that was a project that really set the stage for a lot of what Mijani became. So having those ideas, having that collaboration was really set the stage for, you know, for our ultimate success as we are now. And so it is, you know, and then, like I said before, you know, all the pop-up shops that we did sometimes on the corner of the street, you know, like at 43rd and King Drive and all these little odd places, you know, that we did these things. All that was because we were talking to leaders in the community about, you know, how do we make a change? How do we bring healthy eating to the community? So sometimes it was just like, let's just do it right here. So, you know, all those kind of collaborations were very critical for our own growth and development. And so to be able to at this point, be able to take all that and say, invite people into our space and say, hey, what are you trying to do? You can come work here for a couple of weeks and learn about what it means to own, 3 operations and stuff like that. So it is definitely essential, and highly encouraged to do so.
Alexander, one thing that I'll add quickly to these points that are being made, particularly when it comes to collaboration, I think it's really important first, before you enter into collaborations, is to have an identity. I think it's so important to know who you are as a chef, know who you are as a restaurateur, because when you do start reaching out on those collaborations, you don't want it necessarily to be a competitive kind of thing where it's like, okay, well, I'm going to go and check out what you're doing and then copy your system and copy your products. You don't want to have that kind of adversarial relationship. You know, as whatever your identity is as a chef or as a restaurateur, make sure that is solidified, and then you're reaching out to people who have expertise in areas that you may not have, because nobody can know everything about everything. So as you're collaborating, how can my product, meld together with your product? Or I'm really strong in this area and you're really strong in that area. How can we support each other? Utilizing the talents that you have, sharing those talents, not being, super territorial about it, but sharing those talents and then absorbing the talents of someone else to build that collaboration to where you're both being successful, and it's not one business trying to pit itself against the other, because I think sometimes that can happen in this business, not just, in this particular industry in Chicago, but sometimes, like a large company like Lettuce could potentially even cannibalize itself if we're not collaborating and if we're not sharing the information and the knowledge and the resources that we have. So that first comes with knowing who you are, and again, not listening to the noise of, oh, maybe you should do it more like this or be more like that. No, I don't want to copy anything that you are. I'm me, and this is what I do. But if you've got a system or an idea that can help support it, I can give you a system or idea that's going to help boost you up, and then we're all succeeding.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. I know we are running a little bit on time, so I wanted to comment on that really quickly. Not only do you want to have an idea what your end game is. If you're reaching out to collaborate with someone or seeking that next job, have as much of an understanding of what you're trying to get out of it as possible. For example, if you're reaching out to one of the panelists here on their LinkedIn or Instagram to connect, and they're looking for mentorship or just another question to ask, be direct. You have to know what the end game is so you can, make the best use of your time and your resource and capture that information and be as effective with it as possible. I want to get to Bernard's question here. Question of how different will the industry and brick and mortar look, and should we look for someone trying to open up or should look like for someone to open up a restaurant now? I think if I understand the question, what does it look like opening up a restaurant in our current climate? I know we might have all different perspectives, but anyone want to take a quick jump at answering that question?
Well, I think
no, go, Chef.
I think the embracing the online and digital presence is something that is probably going to be the biggest difference between what restaurants maybe looked like a year ago or 2 years ago. That is something that has definitely, whereas before, maybe doing online stuff or that the digital part of it maybe wasn't front and center, but now it is front and center. And so even having a brick and mortar restaurant, being able to collect the data from all your guests, just embracing that part of it, being able to follow up with emails and thank you notes and all that stuff is to digitize a lot of that information and to embrace, technology as it's come forward in a way that was different before, I think is one of the things.
Yeah, technology is certainly made a difference in allowing people to be, doing a little bit more than surviving, so capturing data, reaching your customers and getting to people who may not be in the immediate area is certainly vital. All right, well, we are at a little bit past the hour, so I want to be respectful of everyone's time. I just want to say thank you guys so much for this discussion. I hope that there were some good nuggets, if you will, for people to take away from this. I think that this was a great conversation. If you were to take away from this in quick points, being intentional, leaning into your instincts, and getting the best idea of what your end game is, and you'll be on the right track. I do want to make sure that I can say thank you again to Illinois SBDC, Greater Englewood, Build Bronzeville, and the Coleman Foundation. Thank you, Chef Mariya, Monique, Lauren.
Thank you so much for having me.
You guys have been fantastic. I do want to say, if you guys would like to reach out to anyone, I know Monique has just shared her LinkedIn. They're on the speed ride. Find them on the internet. Their names. Search them or Instagram. Again, be intentional about why you're reaching out to them. But they've made themselves available through those platforms to be able to contact you further. I do want to let you guys know about an upcoming session where you can get even more information about the food enterprises and how to be a member of Boxville, how to get in that box. Boxville is a shipping container marketplace here under the umbrella of Build Bronzeville. That virtual panel discussion is tomorrow at 12 p.m., capping off the week of this virtual summit. Also, on May 11th, navigating food licensing and regulations. This is going to be the first training brought to you by the Bronzeville Culinary Connection and Logan Square Kitchen. Zena Murray is fantastic. If you are a food enterprise and knowing where you're selling your food to where you're making it, how do you navigate the city, the state, federal, you have to attend this training session. It will save you a lot of time and save you from repeating the process over and over again. But again, these are all good nuggets. We hope that you guys can come out to participate. Thank you so much again. Great to have you guys as a panel, and I look forward to talking to each of you in the future.
Thanks, Alexander.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Have a wonderful day.
You too.
Bye,
You
everyone.
too.